Unfortunate circumstances once again that we got to talk about water safety reactively instead of proactively. I'm sure you want the routine. Is my name's Dave Benjamin, DaveBenjamin. My name's Dave Benjamin, the co-founder, executive director of the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project.
Perfect. You're already a pro at this. Yeah, so I guess my first question is, I mean, this was an incident that didn't happen necessarily in deep waters to begin. I mean, he was just, wading in waist high water. I guess what are the dangers of that, and what should parents be aware of even in waist high water?
So just to clarify, did this happen at the Portage Lakefront and Riverwalk? Did this happen at Ogden Dunes and then get washed over? Do you know exactly like where they were playing in the water?
Let me pull that up.
And is this okay? I got a little bit of shade, I guess, in my face. You want me to sit in the sunlight?
No, I think you look fine.
Okay.
Oh, where did it go? It was just in my email. Oh, here we go. Um, Looks like it was the Portage Lakefront and Riverwalk National Park,
Okay. Well,
in Lake Michigan,
yeah.
and that was recovered in. You located the child at the Ogden Dunes.
Okay. So he washed down the beach. So what's very important is for people to understand that water safety is not common sense. People often think they're just going to go to the beach like they're going to the park. And, if you're at the park, you fall off the monkey bars, you might sprain your ankle. But if you're in water and you end up in water over your head, it can have a fatal outcome. So there's a lot of hazards with water. And unfortunately, going to a national park, which does not have updated beach signage or public rescue equipment or lifeguards, if there's a water emergency, unfortunately, you're on your own. So with young children, especially around this age, under 7 or even under 10 years old, you should have hands-on touch supervision at all times in the water, especially if there's waves happening, because there was definitely waves and dangerous currents yesterday for the south end of Lake Michigan, which continued through this morning. So you may think that you're close to shore and a wave can knock you over and, pull you a few feet out or 50 feet out. It all depends on the conditions that day. So it's a tragic accident, which, could have been prevented, and unfortunately it was not.
Absolutely. And with that, and I know you mentioned the kind of hands-on touch supervision. Is there anything parents can help teach their children to help avoid accidents like that as well?
Um, Well, this is the thing. When I say water safety is not common sense, water safety is not common sense for parents. It's not common sense for children. It's not common sense for, park rangers. It's not common sense for the politicians who make the rules up of whether we're going to have public rescue equipment or not. So uh, it's in some ways it's a complex problem. In some ways it's super simple. What we should be considering when we want to make water safer what we should be considering when we want to make water safer is safer swimmers, safer water, and safer response. Safer swimmers is knowing how to swim, knowing how to float, having a flotation device with you when you're in the water. Safer water is updated beach hazard signage, which is strategically placed near the hazards, as well as public rescue equipment and lifeguards. And then safer response is knowing what to do if there is an emergency, calling for backup, say calling a lifeguard, calling 911, having a flotation device available if you were going to go in the water to try to make a rescue. And all three of these, layers of protection overlap for safer swimmers, safer water, and safer response. It's just not being implemented in the way that it should be. One of the biggest approaches we could take is a water safety school curriculum It would be the fastest approach to reach the largest audience in the shortest amount of time. And then, as you say, you'd ask, how could parents teach their children? This could be children teaching their parents. Because my children taught me that if there's an active shooter, you should run, hide, or fight, because that's what they learned in school. We didn't have that when I was in school. When my son was, 2 years old, he was telling me to put my seatbelt on because he grew up buckled up since birth. So that's how we could kind of reverse that role of education of, we have public education in schools for fire drills, tornado drills, school shooter drills, and even earthquake drills. Very little water safety education. And again, that would be the fastest approach to reach the largest audience in the shortest amount of time. So for people going to the beach this weekend, it's supposed to be a beautiful sunny weekend, weather temps in the 80s. Going to the beach, you should bring a life jacket, which fits not just the children, but also the adults. In case there's a water emergency, you put that life jacket on if you wanted to attempt to help somebody. If you have a young person with poor swimming skills or limited swimming skills, having them wear that life jacket is going to keep them much, much safer. Also, this weekend, we still have cold water temperatures. So you may slowly acclimate into the water, but being in the water for a prolonged period of time is going to incapacitate your swimming ability. Hypothermia is still, a possibility for this weekend's weather and water activities.
Absolutely. And then same thing also, if you do get caught in one of those, undertows, riptides sort of thing, what is the best thing that you can do to try and help yourself?
And so before I answer that question, I want to clarify a couple of terms here. Riptide, undertow, near drowning, dry drowning. These are terms that should never be used to speak in any water safety capacity. When someone says the word undertow, they're actually referring to a rip current. Undertow is a completely different type of current, and most people get confused. And unfortunately, when someone hears the term undertow, they may think that something's going to pull them under the water. Rip tide, the tidal flow in Lake Michigan is less than an inch. And again, when people say rip tide, they're really referring to what would be a rip current or other dangerous current. And actually, the tides really don't have much of an impact on the oceans. As far as a rip tide would be considered like an inlet. When there's a low tide, the water is rushing out by the mouth of the inlet. That would be what the rip tide. So just I just want to clarify some things because we see these quite a bit, and water safety professionals are sometimes kind of picky. If they see something, they'll chastise an argument. And then not near drowning. If I had a heart attack and I survived, did I have a near heart attack? No, I had a heart attack and I survived. So if somebody has respiratory distress due to immersion or submersion in a liquid, it's a drowning with one of three outcomes: non-fatal, non-fatal with injury, or fatal. So it's important to clarify that as well. I'm sorry, about that, but we normally send out a press release at the beginning of each season. We haven't done that yet. What was your question again? Oh, if you ever find yourself struggling in water over your head, what we advocate you do is flip, float, and follow. So you flip over on your back and float to keep your head above water, to calm yourself down from the panic of drowning, and to conserve your energy, and then follow a safe path out of the water. You need to float first, exit strategy second. If you don't float first, you're probably not going to have an opportunity for an exit strategy. We've been working with many organizations to get the rip current survival strategy updated because oftentimes they say, if you're caught in a current, don't panic, swim parallel. The problem is don't panic is not a strategy. Don't panic is an emotional state of mind. And if somebody's panicking, you tell them don't panic, it doesn't really help them. If your clothes are on fire, you told someone don't panic, they still feel the burn. And then swim parallel. Most people, actually more than half Americans who say they know how to swim don't have the basic swimming ability to survive a water emergency. So telling someone swim parallel to the shore if you're caught in a rip current, half the people are not going to be able to physically do that. They don't have that swimming ability. So your best option is float first, float to survive, and then follow a safe path out of the water. So sorry about that little soapbox. But just
No,
trying
no,
to get
you're
some
all good. I
clarification.
mean, it helps me. So
Yeah, so you could use this when you're writing your story, so you have correct terminology, and and then moving forward, we're always there. So
yeah, absolutely. Trying to think if there's anything else. I need to let's see the data that I've got. And I'm assuming this isn't a incredibly common thing. I mean, it looks like there's been about 15 this year. I guess, um, is there anything really being done to mitigate that, by the state, anything in that sort?
it's a little bit of a loaded question. So, um, the way the safety standards on Lake Michigan beaches, the way they are right now, there's not going to be any change within the next year. The way it is now, like, Portage Lakefront Riverwalk National Park does not have lifeguards, does not have public rescue equipment, and does not have updated beach hazard signage placed near the hazards. That's probably not going to change, um, unfortunately, at this moment in time. Uh, we have been advocating with Senator Rodney Pohl, as well as family members of drowning victims, to have it be a state law that would require public rescue equipment on all Lake Michigan beaches, whether they're public, state park, national park, city park. And that got stalled in legislation this past spring, and it will be reintroduced next January. There's plenty of beaches in Indiana that do have lifeguards. Hammond, Whiting, Gary, Indiana Dunes State Park in Chesterton, and Michigan City, Indiana. So I would highly recommend that if you want to go swim at a safer beach, you swim at a beach with lifeguards.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything else? I'm reading just because I don't know, because I'm kind of new to the area. It says there was a beach hazard statement put in. What exactly does that mean for people that might not know, such as myself?
Um, so to simplify, there's always hazards around any body of water. So generally, they will have a beach hazard statement if we're going to have waves and dangerous currents. So if you look at Lake Michigan on a map, from north to south, it's 307 miles long, and from east to west, it's 118 miles at its widest point. Wind traveling over water is called fetch. So if you have north winds fetching 300 miles from the north end to the south end, the whole south end of Lake Michigan is going to be moving with waves and dangerous currents. Now, if we had a south wind moving from the south to the north, the wave activity would be at the north end of the lake. The waters at the south end of the lake will be pretty calm, but we also need to remember that we would call that an offshore wind. A south wind going from land out to open water is an offshore wind, and anything floats can go far and fast offshore. And the National Weather Service is not going to give an advisory for that. So there's pros and cons to the Weather Service advisories. I mean, it's good information, but we need to know how to interpret it properly. There's almost always a wind blowing across Lake Michigan. And even if it's a light wind and the waters are calm, people have a tendency to go out in inflatable rafts or inner tubes, and they can get blown down the beach. They can get blown away from the beach. The sandbar formations, the sandbar is just a hill of sand that's out in the water, and they can change with every wave activity that we have or wind event that comes through. So you can have deep holes of water close to shore. So it's, um, when the National Weather Service puts these out, I mean, yeah, usually the whole state of Illinois and Indiana will be, kind of putting their beaches on lockdown on notice that we have a big, huge, wave event coming. But we will actually, on average, have more drownings on green flag, red flag days. I'm sorry, green flag and yellow flag days on calmer conditions, because there's always hazards around water, and water safety is just not common sense yet. So it's unfortunately, it's not a great answer, but that's what the National Weather Service advisories are for us in Illinois and Indiana. it's generally some northerly winds are going to be coming across the lakes. You know, west winds, northwest, northeast winds are going to come across Lake Michigan, and it's going to cause a lot of wave activity for the south end.
Okay, perfect. Makes sense. I think that's all I've got. Is there any last advice you want to give to parents, kids, anyone, to continue to avoid, tragic deaths like this 7-year-old?
Uh, I would just highly recommend if you're going to any Great Lakes beach that you buy U.S. Coast Guard approved life jackets, properly fitted for all of your young swimmers, and the adults should have them as well, and bring them to the beach with you. You know, the young kids should be wearing them. You should have hands-on touch supervision of them in and around the water. And if there's an emergency, you should be putting on a life jacket if you wanted to attempt a rescue. And then just a quick disclaimer, we recommend that nobody gets in the water to make a rescue unless you're a lifeguard with lifeguard equipment, training, and current physical fitness of a lifeguard, because unfortunately would-be rescuers often become drowning victims as well. So it sounds like there's a lot. It's like this is a lot, but all the information we share is real simple, easy to understand. We shared in our presentations in a one concept builds onto the next concept format, so it's easy to retain. And I'm just kind of giving you a crash course on this call.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I think that that's all I've got. So I really appreciate you speaking with me and on such quick notice too.
Sure. If you have any other questions, just give me a call or email, and I'll get back to you.
Awesome. All right. Sounds like a plan.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
All right. I got to go back to work. I'm painting a house. So,
Well, good luck with that.
thanks.